On a bright morning, the Spanish police received an emergency call from a quiet neighborhood in Malacca. At the scene, they found a woman lying motionless, her body covered with multiple stab wounds and blood soaking deep into the floor. The killer had fled, but just a few hours later, he was arrested while calmly sitting in a nearby coffee, as if nothing had happened.
The case seemed straightforward, but it was only the beginning of a series of shocking events that would unfold over nearly a decade. Tracing the suspect's identity led investigators back to an old file long thought forgotten: the disappearance of a young woman in 2014, and what was later found behind the wall of an old apartment. A discovery so horrifying that even the most seasoned forensic experts struggled to keep their composure.
Sibora was a lively, cheerful young woman filled with dreams. After her parents' divorce, her mother took the children to Rome to start a new life.
Sibora quickly adapted to her new surroundings and was well-liked by her friends, who affectionately called her Sibby.
Coming from a struggling family, she started working part-time at a coffee as a teenager to help her mother with the household expenses. Yet despite her busy schedule, Sibora never gave up on her dream of becoming a teacher. She loved children, had a passion for teaching, and always believed that one day she would stand proudly in front of a classroom. With her natural beauty, slender figure, and a title from a local beauty contest, Sibora could have chosen a modeling career, but she never wavered. Her dream was not the bright lights of the stage, but the quiet chalk and blackboard of a classroom. At the age of 18, fate led her to meet Marco in a coffee. Marco was 13 years older, experienced, confident, and charming. At that time, Sibora knew very little about him, only that he had gone through a divorce and was trying to rebuild his life.
Though her intuition whispered that something was not quite right, Sibora was drawn to him. After a year of dating, Marco suggested moving to Spain to start anew, promising a place full of opportunities. Despite her mother's objections, Sibora followed him, holding on to a simple belief that love would lead her into a happier chapter of life.
At first, everything seemed to go well. She worked as a waitress and Marco as a chef. They rented a small apartment near the sea, and Sibora often called her mother, her voice full of optimism as she shared stories about their new life.
But peace did not last. Marco began losing his jobs, becoming short-tempered, irrationally jealous, and blaming everyone but himself. The tension grew little by little, slowly suffocating the life that Sibora once believed was the beginning of her happiness. When her mother, Elisabetta, came to visit her in Spain, she was shocked by what she saw.
Sibora, once a bright and lively girl, had now become withdrawn and quiet. Even more unsettling, Marco showed clear irritation whenever her mother was around. Over time, life in Spain grew increasingly suffocating for Sibora.
The dreams that once burned so brightly in her youth were now nothing but distant memories. And then, in July 2014, Sibora suddenly disappeared. The last message she ever sent was to Marco. After that, her phone went silent. Her social media went dark. It was completely out of character for someone who always kept in touch. Her mother grew anxious, especially since not long before, Sibora had tearfully confessed that she had finally escaped her toxic relationship with Marco. She had moved out, starting a new life that felt lighter and freer than ever. But then, out of nowhere, Marco appeared at Elisabetta's home in Italy. He looked worried and remorseful, saying that Sibora had left after an argument, abandoning all her belongings. A short time later, he changed his story, claiming that a security guard had seen her leaving with 2 suitcases. His conflicting accounts only deepened the family's suspicions. Elisabetta remembered clearly that just a month earlier, her daughter had firmly ended the relationship after 3 painful years of control and manipulation. In her last calls with her mother, Sibora said with certainty, "I will never go back to Marco." Even after moving to her new place, Marco continued to follow and harass her, leaving Sibora in constant fear. In truth, this was not the first time she had tried to leave. In 2013, she had returned to Italy, determined to break free once and for all. But Marco found her, begged for forgiveness, made promises, and once again pulled her back into the same endless cycle. That is why, when he claimed she had left everything behind and disappeared, her family immediately doubted him. They knew Sibora would never vanish without a word, especially not from her mother and siblings.
Even so, her family still held on to hope. Perhaps Sibora was hiding somewhere, trying to escape Marco once and for all. But Marco's conflicting statements, along with Sibora's complete disappearance, only deepened their fears and raised endless questions.
By 2015, the investigation into Sibora's disappearance had made no significant progress. Despite Elisabetta's relentless pleas for help, every effort led to a dead end. Marco, the last person to see Sibora alive, remained the sole suspect, yet there was no evidence strong enough to charge him.
Throughout the investigation, he insisted that Sibora had simply left after an argument, taking a few belongings with her. Her clothes, documents, and personal items were all still in the apartment. Marco never reported her missing to the police. He only claimed to have distributed flyers around the neighborhood and came up with far-fetched stories that Sibora had gone to Argentina or that someone had seen her walking away with a stranger.
Elisabetta refused to sit still. She searched everywhere, following every possible lead to find her beloved daughter, but nothing ever surfaced. Even when authorities expanded the search through international missing persons databases, the results were the same. Silence.
For Sibora's family and those who loved her, the pain never faded. Meanwhile, Marco went on living as if nothing had ever occurred. He went to the gym, chatted with neighbors, and maintained the image of an ordinary man. But behind that facade, his new girlfriends began sharing stories. Stories of jealousy, control, and violence, all repeating the same pattern.
By 2023, Marco was living with his new girlfriend, Paula, and they had a child together. But their life was far from peaceful or happy. Paula was living the same kind of life that Sibora once did. On May 16, 2023, Paula had a rare day off. She smiled brightly and cheerfully shared with her colleagues about the relaxing evening she was looking forward to. But just one day later, around 11:30 a.m., a loud scream echoed from the apartment of Paula and Marco. The neighbors were used to their arguments, but this time the noise was so violent that it alarmed the entire neighborhood. The neighbors knocked on the door, but only heard sobbing, then silence. A moment later, Marco opened the door. His demeanor was unusually calm, and he said that Paula was sleeping. One of the neighbors immediately called the police. Marco gradually realized that the situation was becoming serious, so he suddenly left the apartment. When the landlord arrived with a spare key and opened the door to check, the police discovered Paula lying on the floor with multiple deep stab wounds.
Her clothes were soaked with blood, and she had died several hours earlier. Faced with this scene, the police immediately sealed off the area, summoned the forensic team to collect evidence, and launched a manhunt for Marco. Paula's body was taken for autopsy to determine the exact cause of death. Meanwhile, investigators quickly traced the suspect, and Marco was arrested just a few hours later at a nearby coffee.
His attitude was unusually calm, showing no signs of resistance as he was escorted away. Only 3 days after Paula's gruesome death, Marco had to appear in court. He remained silent for almost the entire hearing, answering only a few questions from his defense lawyer. The court denied him bail, and at that moment, no one could have imagined that the name Sibora, the girlfriend who had been missing for nearly 10 years, would suddenly resurface. During interrogation at the police station, Marco admitted that during an argument in 2014, he had killed Sibora and hidden her body inside their apartment.
He even offered to lead the police to the place where he had concealed the body, describing in detail each action he took against Sibora. In early June 2023, Spanish police officially reopened the Sibora case. They searched the old apartment where Sibora and Marco had once lived, but at first nothing appeared suspicious.
It wasn't until they noticed that the building's floor plan did not match the actual layout. A large space in the bedroom was missing, replaced by a newly built cement wall. Behind that wall, they discovered a large wooden box filled with lime. Inside that box, the police found the first shocking piece of evidence.
A plastic bag contained a knife stained with her blood and several personal items believed to belong to Sibora. And without a doubt, inside the box were human remains. The remains were immediately sent for forensic analysis to determine the identity and cause of death. Through an initial examination, investigators noticed that the tattoos on the body perfectly matched the descriptions in the missing person report of Sibora. However, to confirm with absolute certainty, the Spanish authorities requested a DNA sample from Sibora's family. The DNA results confirmed that the remains belonged to Sibora Gagani. 1 week after the remains were discovered, more horrifying details about Marco's actions continued to surface. During one interrogation, he confessed that he had once tried to dissolve Sibora's body using acid. Although the statement has not yet been verified, investigators noted that Marco constantly changed his testimony, sometimes admitting guilt, other times denying it. The more he spoke, the more contradictions he revealed that could no longer be hidden. By 2023, Sibora's remains were finally returned to her family for burial. Meanwhile, the legal proceedings against Marco continued. At a hearing on January 30, 2024, he unexpectedly submitted a 17-page handwritten letter to the court, admitting to killing Paula but attaching countless excuses to justify his actions.
Because Marco kept altering his statements, investigators needed more time to review the case before proceeding with a formal trial. Marco will continue to face prosecution in 2 separate cases involving 2 women who once loved him, once hoped he would change, and ultimately paid for that hope with their lives.